and number of Asian families. Chinese, Korean, primarily, and one Japanese that I saw. Why? Well, first of all, Harrisonburg is James Madison University, Eastern Mennonite University. So that's going to take the Asian population. Why the Hispanic population? Labor of some kind. Our oldest grandson was born on the 14th of August, 1996 in Manassas, Virginia. In the hospital, I think, that was made famous by Lorena Bobbitt. Those of you who don't know, remember Lorena Bobbitt. She got angry at her husband and cut him a little bit. He was the only Anglo born that day. This is Manassas, Virginia. The battlefield for Bull Run is a mile up the road. If you go to fast food places in that area, invariably they are Hispanic. The Hispanic population is very large. Every time you see, remember Sheriff Burgoyne used to pull those vans aside that had all this, that's where they were going. They were going to Northern Virginia. What Tom didn't know was you're supposed to just let them pass through and go to Northern Virginia. Because that's where the labor is. Okay? Now, if you want an idea of what modern America is like, and you haven't been out of the valley, just go to IKEA in Robinson Township. Okay, and as you go in, not only look, but listen. And the languages that you will hear. I mean, it's amazing, this mix of people. Asian, Hispanic, Eastern European, and the other thing that's amazed me, and see, I'm one of these people who observes things. When we go shopping, if Alice is looking for something, I'm looking at the labels because I'm interested in where they're made. That kind of mix to me is important because it's concrete evidence of how much our world has changed. There's a song, I think it's done by Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. It's called Cherokee Nation. You remember the one line where he talks about that our beads used to be handmade and now they're made in Japan. Not anymore. They don't make things in Japan anymore. They're made in China or Malaysia. Okay? I just looked at a car the other day made by Volkswagen. It's made in Portugal. Another Volkswagen made in Mexico. Korean Hyundai's made in Alabama. BMW's made in someplace down there. Okay? So these kinds of things change dramatically, and it changes the complexion of who we are as Americans. Okay. Now that bothers a lot of people. One of the reasons there is so much emphasis about immigration, and it becomes a hot button issue, is that for a lot of Americans, they see a society that's changing and they don't like it because it's not what they were used to. Okay? But the fact is that the one constant in history is change. So let's go back to the end of the 19th century. And you're living in the northern panhandle of West Virginia. And most of the people who live in that panhandle's last names don't have any itches or skis or end in vowels. They end in things like Williams or McKinley or Smith or Jones or so on. Okay? And then you start to get this influx of people with strange sounding names. Itches and Maslowskis, Javersaks, Fabianiches, Castaldos, Osvas. And these are people just on my street. We didn't have any Joneses on my street. No Smiths. We all had, and the people below me were Trebilowitzes. Trebilowitz. I never knew how to spell Mr. We called him Slug. Honestly, we did. He was a big hulking man. And he lived next to the DeGarmos. Across the street from the Mahalis. Down the street from the Maslowskis, the Bulboffs, the Rolliches. Okay? Now, when all of those folks came in, some of those folks couldn't even celebrate Christmas on the red day. A friend of mine, he and I have been friends since we were in the second grade. Okay? And one of the things that I always envied about him is he got to have 2 Christmases. He had the regular Christmas. And then, about 11, 12, 13 days later, he could get out of school early, and as we would be coming, he'd be going. I could still see it. I can even see the car that he was getting into. And I said, Milo, where are you going? He said, it's Serbian Christmas. And I'm thinking, no, that's not fair. Yeah. And he told me about all the things that, that would go on, and I'm thinking, no, why? How can he get 2? We never called it Orthodox Christmas. That's what it was. It was always Serbian Christmas. Why? Because that was the ethnic group that we knew. It were the Serbs. Okay? Well, there were a lot of Americans who didn't like those Serbs, or the Croatians, or the Italians, as the local paper would sometimes call them, the dirty Dagos. Remember, the Ku Klux Klan was as much anti-immigrant and anti-Jewish as it was anti-black. If you've ever seen the movie, is it The Cardinal with Tom Tryon, where there's a beating scene where the priest, because he's Catholic. My freshman year at West Liberty in 1963, I came out of Main Hall, walking across campus to my dorm room, and a guy walking with me, I don't remember his name, I know I can see his looks, tall guy, thinny, blonde hair, glasses, and he said, Javersak. He said, what kind of name is that? I said, it's Croatian. I said, Croatian? I said, yeah, it's part of Yugoslavia. He said, are you a Catholic? I said, no, I'm not. I said, but all the Javersaks, except for my family, are Catholics. He said, well, it's good, you're not a Catholic. And I said, well, my girlfriend's a Catholic. I actually had a girlfriend before I met my wife. Met her, girlfriend was gone. And I said, well, what's so bad about Catholics? He said, don't you know? And I said, no. He said, they're all going to roast in hell. I said, I don't know. Why? Well, remember, 3 years before, John Kennedy is still the only Catholic president we've ever had. Comes into West Virginia. This is, if you've ever been to the State Museum in Charleston, the huge display of all the photographs of Kennedy in the 1960 election. My favorite is one taken at West Liberty, impromptu. If you can imagine this happening now, surrounded by an audience about this size, and Kennedy standing on a chair, talking to the college students. Okay. You don't see anybody guarding him or anything of this nature. But Kennedy was into West Virginia because Kennedy was a Catholic. And Kennedy had to do well in West Virginia because it was one of the most Protestant states in America. how can that be?